Pull up a seat and travel these old highways with me. Every breakfast ahead carries a story worth hearing.
In 1948, a farmer named Fred Bosselman and his wife Maxine opened a road stop in Nebraska that's still running today, nearly 80 years later. Here are 25 real breakfasts that fed generations of American drivers crossing the entire country before dawn, each one carrying a small story about what it meant to live an entire life in motion.
Before we go on, subscribe now. Item 25 on this list isn't even about food.
It's about the person who served that food, and it's the most emotional item in this entire video series.
The standard order: 2 eggs, hash browns, and toast. In 1948, farmer and truck driver Fred Bosselman and his wife Maxine opened a stop in Grand Island, Nebraska, offering fuel and a hot meal to drivers crossing the entire state hauling freight. The most common order among truckers quickly became almost a standardized ritual at any stop in the country. 2 eggs, cooked however the driver preferred, hash browns fried on the griddle, and toast, all served fast enough not to delay the next delivery. This simple order became so universal that any waitress at any stop between California and New York knew exactly what to prepare the moment a trucker sat down at the counter. Bosselman's stop is still running today, nearly 80 years later, one of the few surviving examples of that first generation of American road stops: chicken fried steak and eggs. On routes through Texas and the American South, a cheaper, tougher cut of steak, forcefully tenderized with a meat mallet and breaded before frying, became the most ordered dish among drivers who needed enough protein to power through a 12-hour shift or more behind the wheel. Served alongside 2 eggs and covered in a simple white gravy of flour and milk, chicken fried steak solved the real problem of stretching a cheap cut of meat far enough to fit the tight budget of an independent driver paid by the mile, not by the hour. The dish, of German and Czech origin brought by immigrants to rural Texas, found in the truck stop the perfect environment to become a permanent menu item across the South. Denver omelet chopped ham, bell pepper, and onion folded into beaten eggs into a dense omelet took its name from Denver, Colorado, a strategic stopping point for truckers crossing the Rocky Mountains. The dish, hearty enough to work as a complete meal on its own, was ideal for stops that needed to serve drivers in a hurry to get back on the road before snow closed some mountain pass ahead. Unlike many dishes on this list, the Denver omelet wasn't born specifically from trucker culture, but was adopted by road stops across the country precisely because it already arrived ready to be hearty, fast, and portable. Corned beef hash and eggs. Corned beef hash, shredded canned beef fried together with chopped potato until golden, solved a practical problem for any small roadside stop. It needed no butcher and no fresh meat stock, just cans that could sit on a shelf for months with no refrigeration at all. Served with eggs on top, the dish delivered enough calories to fuel hours of continuous driving at a low enough cost for any small stop to stay price competitive with the larger stops spreading across the country. It was exactly the kind of dish that defined the earliest American road stops before the interstate highway system changed everything to a completely different scale. The truck stop. Cinnamon roll. Some road stops became regionally known almost exclusively for their own cinnamon roll, baked in giant trays early in the morning to already be ready and still warm when the first night shift drivers stopped to refuel before dawn. The smell of cinnamon baking spread across the entire parking lot, functioning almost as involuntary advertising for any trucker deciding which stop to pick. Some of these stops still openly compete today for the title of the country's biggest cinnamon roll. It was one of the few genuinely sweet pleasures available in a routine dominated by savory dishes and caffeine.
You've seen 5 of these 25 breakfasts so far, but hold on to this.
Item 14 explains why truckers ate pie at 5 in the morning without anyone finding it strange.
The Bottomless Cup of Coffee Road stops adopted early the policy of unlimited coffee refills for one flat price, recognizing that a driver behind the wheel all night needed constant caffeine, not a single cup. The practice became so central to trucker culture that stopping for coffee became shorthand for any break on the road. CB radios, popular among drivers especially in the 1970s, often carried entire conversations about which specific stop on the route had the best coffee. Information valuable enough for drivers to decide to detour several miles just to stop at one particular place. Bottomless coffee wasn't a luxury, it was a work tool as essential as the truck itself. Grits with butter. At stops across the American South, white corn grains cooked into a creamy porridge and served with melted butter on top accompanied practically any main breakfast dish, as automatic as bread alongside a meal in other regions of the country. Drivers crossing southern routes quickly learned that ordering just eggs without specifying almost always came with grits by default, whether the driver liked it or not. The dish's simplicity, made only from coarsely ground corn and water, kept costs low enough for any small roadside stop to serve generous portions without hurting the business's already tight margin. Texas toast. French toast. Thick slices of white bread, cut almost twice as thick as ordinary sandwich bread, dipped in beaten egg and fried on the griddle until golden, created a French toast dense enough to actually hold off hunger until the next stop. The thicker bread, nicknamed Texas toast for its origin in Texas, became so tied to road stops that it now appears in ordinary supermarkets pre-sliced specifically at that larger thickness. Served with syrup or jam, Texas toast. French toast solved the same problem every dish on this list was trying to solve. Deliver the maximum possible energy before any driver climbed back into the truck's seat. Silver dollar pancake stack. Small pancakes, roughly the size of an old American silver dollar coin, stacked in generous quantities, let a driver control exactly how much he wanted to eat, instead of committing to 2 or 3 giant fixed-size pancakes. The small shape also cooked faster on the griddle, letting a busy stop's kitchen serve drivers in a hurry without making anyone wait too long. Stacks of 10, 12, or more small pancakes became something of an informal competition between rival stops on the same route, each trying to be known as the place serving the most generous stack for the same price.
Before we continue, take a guess. Why do you think road stops serve dessert pie at any hour of the day, including early morning? The answer has nothing to do with sweet tooth, and it's coming in the next item.
Griddle fried truck stop potatoes. Cooked potato chopped into cubes and fried directly on the griddle along with onion until forming a crispy crust outside and soft inside, accompanied practically every main breakfast dish at any stop in the country. Frying directly on the same griddle where eggs and meat were also cooking meant the potatoes soaked up a bit of the flavor of everything else cooking around them, a specific griddle flavor many drivers reported missing years after retiring from the road. It was the cheapest and most consistent side dish on this entire list, practically guaranteed at any stop, no matter how small or isolated. Chili and eggs. On southwestern American routes, leftover chili from the night before, already thick and well-seasoned, was reheated and served with fried eggs on top, creating a spicy breakfast quite different from the milder standard found in the rest of the country. The combination made use of an entire pot of chili that would otherwise sit until the next dinner. Road stops in New Mexico and Arizona still keep versions of this combination on the menu today, a direct link between the region's spicy food culture and the practical need for total use that defined any road stop kitchen. Border-style huevos rancheros. Near the Mexican border, road stops often employed Mexican or Mexican-American cooks who brought to the menu fried eggs served over tortilla, topped with spicy tomato sauce and beans, an option many drivers from outside the region tried for the first time by chance, stopping at a road stop during a longer trip. The dish represented one of the first real contacts many drivers from other parts of the country had with genuine Mexican cooking, long before Mexican restaurants spread across inland American cities. Border stops used this dish as a real competitive edge, drawing curious drivers willing to detour off the most direct route. Cold meatloaf. Sandwich drivers who drove all night without stopping at any road stop sometimes brought from home a slice of the previous night's meatloaf, pressed cold between two slices of bread inside a paper bag, eaten one-handed on the wheel during a stretch of highway with no stop available for dozens of miles. The practice, more common among independent drivers trying to save every possible cent, turned last night's dinner leftovers into the next day's breakfast. It was the exact opposite of the road stop experience described throughout the rest of this list, proof that not every driver had the time or spare money to stop anywhere at all.
That's 11 of 25 breakfasts revealed so far.
But item 25 closes out this entire list with an idea that sums up everything. This video series is trying to show about American food. Keep going until then.
Pie for breakfast diners and road stops open 24 hours served sweet pie at any hour of the day, including early morning. Because the same rotating pie case stayed on display the entire shift with no real distinction between breakfast, lunch, or dinner hours. Drivers finishing an entire night shift of driving, with their own body clock completely out of sync with the actual time of day, ordered fruit or cream pie at 5 in the morning without any waitress finding the request strange. The practice became so tied to trucker culture that eating pie in the morning became almost a cultural symbol of life on the road. The trucker's special plate. Practically every road stop developed at some point a specific dish nicknamed the trucker's special. Usually a medium steak combined with 2 eggs, potatoes, and toast, sold at a fixed promotional price designed specifically to attract loyal drivers to one particular stop on a route with several competing options. The dish's name changed from stop to stop, but the business logic behind it was always the same. Drivers traveled the same route repeatedly across months and years of a career, and a stop that earned one specific driver's loyalty guaranteed repeat revenue every time that driver passed back through the area. Chicken and waffles. On some southern routes, fried chicken was served over a sweet waffle, a combination mixing hearty, salty protein with sweet carbohydrate in one single meal, designed to deliver enough energy for several straight hours of driving. The combination, rooted in African-American Southern cooking, found in road stops a natural environment for adoption. Since drivers rarely cared about traditional mealtime convention, stops serving this specific combination became known stopping points among drivers who traded recommendations about routes and stops among themselves, forming an informal information network that existed long before any restaurant review app. Reuben sandwich at 3 a.m. Pastrami or corned beef, sauerkraut, and Swiss cheese grilled between slices of rye bread, a sandwich originally meant for lunch or dinner, became a common late-night order at stops, keeping a full menu available 24 hours a day. Drivers who had just finished an entire night shift often didn't want any traditional breakfast dish, preferring a meal closer to dinner before finally sleeping during the day. This total menu flexibility, available at any hour with no judgment, was one of the real differences separating a road stop from any ordinary restaurant with fixed operating hours. Frozen dinner. Heated at the counter. Starting in the late 1950s with the rise of the ready-to-heat frozen dinner, some smaller, more isolated stops began keeping a small freezer behind the counter, offering drivers on routes with very few food options a fast alternative when the full kitchen had closed. The practice never replaced the made-to-order food defining most stops, but it worked as a safety net at stops too small to keep a kitchen open at any hour. It was an early sign of bigger changes still decades away, when convenience stores inside the stops themselves would start selling more packaged food instead of kitchen-made dishes. Seasoned pork sausage patties. Small discs of seasoned ground pork fried until golden and served alongside eggs offered a protein alternative cheaper than steak or whole ham, keeping any stop price competitive without fully sacrificing breakfast menu variety. Ground pork bought in bulk directly from regional suppliers cost a fraction of whole cuts, letting smaller stops offer a real meat option without hurting the business's already tight margin too much. It was the kind of menu item that rarely showed up in any ad for the stop, but quietly sustained a good part of daily breakfast revenue at stops across the country. Egg sandwich on white bread. A single fried egg between two slices of ordinary white bread, with no extra side at all, represented the cheapest and fastest option on the entire breakfast menu. Designed specifically for drivers in a real hurry to get back on the road or too tight on budget for anything more elaborate. The sandwich could be made and wrapped in under 2 minutes, letting the driver literally eat while driving. It was, of everything on this list, the item demanding the least from the stop's kitchen and depending the most on the real urgency of someone always racing a delivery clock. Ham steak served at any hour. A thick slice of ham grilled until the edges browned, served alone or with eggs, was one of the few menu items available with the same quality at 6 in the morning or at midnight, since pre-cooked ham didn't demand the same careful handling raw meat would require at any hour. Stops open 24 hours depended on exactly this kind of dish. For drivers whose internal clock no longer told morning from night, knowing the ham steak would be exactly the same at any hour offered a small but real sense of predictability in a life defined by always different routes. Truck stop cherry pie. Among the pie options in any larger stop's rotating case, cherry pie stood out as a favorite among long-haul drivers, perhaps for its vivid color, standing out visually next to the more neutral cream or apple options. Stops along Route 66 and other historic mid-century highways openly competed for the reputation of serving the region's best cherry pie, an edge that spread by word of mouth among drivers trading route recommendations. The pie represented once again the small, sweet rewards set aside within a work routine defined mostly by savory dishes, caffeine, and constant urgency. The patty melt for breakfast. Seasoned ground beef, grilled and topped with melted cheese between two slices of bread also grilled in butter, became a breakfast order just as common as a lunch one at stops keeping a single menu available all day. The patty melt, as it was called, solved the same problem as the Reuben mentioned earlier on this list. Drivers finishing night shifts wanted something heartier and saltier than eggs and pancakes, even if the clock on the stop's wall read breakfast hours for any ordinary customer walking in the front door. Sausage gravy over toast. Seasoned pork sausage, crumbled in a skillet and mixed with flour and milk into a thick white gravy full of meat pieces, was poured over plain toast instead of the traditional biscuit, a common adaptation at stops preferring to keep the menu simpler to prepare in high volume during the busy overnight hours. Sausage gravy delivered a generous amount of food from little actual meat, stretched by the thickened gravy itself, and could be made in large batches ahead of time. It was exactly the kind of dish designed to serve high volumes of customers quickly, without fully sacrificing the homemade meal feeling. The waitress who never forgot your order, at stops receiving the same drivers repeatedly across years running the same route. Waitresses developed real, specific memory of each regular driver's order, greeting each one by name and already writing down the order from memory before the driver had even fully sat down. This relationship, built stop after stop across months and years, turned the road stop into something far beyond a simple refueling place, becoming one of the few consistent points of human connection in the isolated, lonely life of a long-haul driver spending entire weeks away from home. Decades of routes and dishes across this list sum up, in the end, the same thing. Road food was never just about the meal itself. It was about creating a little normalcy and human connection in a life lived entirely in motion.
These 25 breakfasts show that road stop food was never just about killing hunger fast. Before getting back in the truck, it was about creating small rituals, small certainties, and small human connections within a profession entirely built on always being in motion, always far from home, always between one delivery and the next. Which of these 25 breakfasts have you already eaten or seen someone in your own family order at a road stop without ever noticing?
Comment below. Which of these dishes would you order first at a stop in the middle of the night?